Hey everyone, welcome. This is our 13th episode of the Spiky Signal Show, where I sit down with some of the most exceptional revenue leaders in the revenue space. The podcast is meant for all of us to explore the biggest problems facing customer facing teams, sharing the real challenges of sales and what revenue leaders deal with on an everyday basis, from pipeline visibility to coaching to deal velocity, really sharing stories and strategies. We cover them all here. I'm your host, Waleed Shaarani, head of revenue over at Spiky.ai, and today I'm here with Alex. Remind me of your last name.
Colao.
Colao. Okay. CRO at M4 Data Research. Today we're talking about basically how to build trust with prospects. A lot of sellers have struggled with this, especially nowadays, since the market is just so noisy nowadays, and you'll figure out why your buyer is ghosting you and how you can potentially win them back. So, Alex, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the opportunity, Wally. Good to speak with you today.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, why don't you just give us a quick elevator pitch on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I'm the CRO at M4 Data Research here in Irvine, California. Been with the company for going on 11 years now. We've been in business for about 13 years, solving the problem of data quality in the research industry. Market research and consumer data faces a lot of fraud or recall bias issues as these spaces become commoditized over time. Even the companies that are doing well with data collection and have high quality data, they often offer firms disparate sources for using that data. So we're all about validation, connected omni traffic data for full funnel visibility with a lot of different applications across advertising, consumer shopper insights, and data licensing for clients here. So ultimately, they can use consumer data to make better decisions.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It looks like you've been there for a while now, almost a decade, right?
Yes, and a stat that I like to tout for my company is I was the 20th employee here, and there are 14 of those 20 people who are also still here 10 years later. So a lot of
Wow.
loyalty, a lot of pride amongst the group. We've stayed close even as we've expanded to now over 100 people.
That's awesome. You don't typically see that type of retention, especially in the revenue space, with leaders, sales leaders. Typically, their tenure's like 12, 14 months I've seen. So that's really good to see that. The company must be, in a really good state and treating everybody, well.
Yes, definitely. We've had some exciting growth here outside of the COVID year, but even that year we managed to grow just a little bit. And definitely two founders, Chris St. Hilaire and Jeff Harrelson, who are good people in addition to good business leaders. That keeps us a lot around.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, considering your time there, I'd love to kind of like just kind of get your input on this overall topic of, prospecting and following up with prospects and really keeping in touch with them, and kind of avoiding people ghosting you, especially nowadays. The market is so crowded, and I think we discussed this a little bit, but it's really up to the seller on providing value, and that's when a prospect really finds that valuable, and is why they'll typically give you an answer. But like based off of your tenure, you've been in the individual contributor seat. You've been all the way up to a CRO, a leader in the space. So I'd really love to get your thoughts, kind of like taking a step back from leadership perspective, and maybe it still applies, in today's world for yourself. How does that kind of like prospecting journey look like, and how do you kind of keep in touch with prospects, or your sales team keeps in touch with prospects and have them not ghost them?
Yeah, so much of life is about perspective and empathy, and that definitely relates to sales. Light just turned off me here. That definitely relates to sales, and that uh, if you want to engage a prospect and keep them engaged across a process, you need to be constantly providing value from their perspective. I had a junior seller many years ago come to me and say, "Hey, I really need your help working on my follow-up emails. I'm not getting a lot of responses. After my initial meetings, I'm sending follow-up and people are ghosting me. Why are they ghosting? Let's write better emails." And I told him my hypothesis was likely that he needed to have better calls, not write better emails, right? And that's very common for an intro seller is they're feeling like they're not writing that piercing piece when really what happened is they didn't have a productive conversation, show their business acumen and that they could be a valuable consultant, and show the value in what they were offering to how that helped a client accomplish a job to be done and a pain point they had with that job to be done. Providing value and having prospects not ghost you are related, right? If you have something that's meaningful for someone and it can help them accomplish a job, help them solve a pain point, help them go chase a good opportunity, they're going to stay engaged with you. In my career now, I'm on the other side of buying decisions, and I can definitely relate to that too. And we can talk about that a little bit more as we go.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you think that, and this is kind of like along the same line, has the buying process just become too complex nowadays for buyers to even finish? I guess like it also constitutes, the seller needs to really simplify that buying process for the prospect. But what are your thoughts like after, the countless years that you've been in this space? Is it just becoming too complex?
And crowded in addition to complex, right? There are just so many things work related, related to this initiative, but also work related outside of the initiative, and then your personal life that are grabbing for people's attention. My father was in sales, and he tells me about the times in the 70s and 80s cold calling. Everybody picked up their phone if they were at their desk, and they'd talk to you and they'd be curious about what you were offering because they weren't getting 100 emails while they were on that cold call and four text messages and three other phone calls as they were going to be late to a meeting, right? And so just yeah, I mean, as the buying process and selling process become more complex, yes, I think it's become more crowded, and being able to cut through and quickly show value to a buyer when everybody is inundating them through multiple channels, attempting to show them that they have value to offer, definitely becomes more difficult. And it just puts more emphasis on the seller to get creative about the right channels to find your buyer and to get really piercing with your value message, right? What problem are you solving or what opportunity are you helping them chase? Exactly how you can do that and how you can do that faster, better, cheaper than the alternative. Because if you can't reach your buyer with that type of a message quickly, they're not going to have time to entertain the rest of the conversation like they used to.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with someone the other day. The channel really depends on also where you're selling into the market. I think he mentioned that the UK, it's either vice versa. The UK is more likely to pick up a cold call versus the US, or the US is more likely. Maybe you have insight there, but is there a particular channel that's worked for you really well in the past, or even for your team right now?
Yes, there's a lot of talk about conferences coming back and being a more important channel, especially with the rise of AI. One of the only ways that you know for sure that you're talking to a person now is when they're standing in front of you.
Yeah.
Um, Cold calls, when I started my career in cold calling 15 years ago, it was 100% cold calling at the company I worked for. If you were asked to send an email and did, you had failed at your task there. And nowadays, almost all of our outreach that we're successful with is coming from email if it's cold outreach.
Hmm.
Uh, LinkedIn, mailing people something because you can differentiate there, leaving voicemails, those channels can definitely work, but email and conferences are what we're seeing work most often. Emails that really lead with value, lead with the problem that you solve. Because if a buyer can see that right at the top, then you've earned the right to move forward with the rest of your message. But the biggest channel for us that we're reinvesting in now that people are back after some COVID lockdowns, spending more budget towards conferences because people can find real people at shows and it gives you that opportunity to give that elevator pitch and hopefully have a little longer conversation with somebody in dedicated time that they've reserved to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard conferences a lot as well. I think it also really depends on the size of the business, right? Like depending on the ROI that you're trying to get out of the conference. So, for example, I mean, you can attend a conference with just your team and like get a free pass or like a cheap pass to attend, or you can spend thousands of dollars on a booth and kind of, see if we can capture, one or two solid leads and close one of them to make up for the cost of the conference. Um, what's the typical ROI you've seen from conferences? Do you guys even spend on booths, or is it just, hey, let's go there and, connect with prospects on the ground?
Yeah, we do spend on a booth for sure because then people have a place to come and find you. Good conferences have been doing a better job. I'll shout out the Insights Association and their Corporate Researchers Conference, doing a great job at encouraging booth traffic and booth conversation by setting the exhibit hall in a place where attendees naturally have to walk through it to get to sessions or to find their food or something like that. So yeah, definitely seeing conferences invest in their vendors. Having a booth and having a presence is important for branding, but also to have that place for conversations to take place. If not, a lot of the shows are hesitant to give a list ahead of time, so you can't always schedule meetings unless you know who's going to be there organically. Makes the job a lot more difficult, especially when trying to meet new prospects. You asked about channels. The other thing that I'd share with the audience here is this paradox where a lot of us in sales are thinking sales is a numbers game. How can I make more dials? How can I send more emails? And just trying to increase cold activity. Now, you want to think smarter and harder in sales or really in anything that you're doing. And there's been something on LinkedIn posted about finding a job and how most job applicants are thinking job boards, apply, apply, apply. Most recruiters, the very first thing they're doing when they're looking to fill a job is looking around their office, going, is there anybody here that could be promoted or wants to shift departments and fits this role? And then if not, they're going to their company and going, do you have anybody you would refer from outside the company to take this job? Well, the same thing can apply to sales, right? Instead of just sending another email or making another cold call, how can you find somebody at that company that you or somebody at your company have some connection to and use that connection to make a personal introduction? My wife would not be married to me if one of our mutual best friends didn't introduce us because I might have been a scary guy to her. But when he said, I promise he'll treat you well, she said, okay, I'll talk to him. Right? That's the difference between cold outreach and two children and almost 10 years of a wonderful marriage, is that personal introduction. So for anybody thinking about how you initiate that value exchange and don't get ghosted from initial outreach, think about how you can make it less cold, how you can warm it up, how you can find some way to use your network or the network of your colleagues or the networks of your friends or family to help make that introduction, because walls definitely get broken down when you can leverage a network in that way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially when it comes, like speaking from my experience with Spiky, we're still relatively small. It's a startup and, we have 20 employees, nothing crazy. But when you run these sequences or campaigns on cold, outreaches, honestly, they don't even recognize your brand and they just think you're spam at that, at the very least. So, what we've been kind of really doing to differentiating ourselves is, again, leveraging the relationships, whether that's our investors or our advisors. And literally, I'll ask them, hey, do you mind if I go through your LinkedIn connections and develop a list of 5 to 10 people that I think would be great for me to talk to? 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, go for it. And then that's typically when they can make an intro. So yeah, the power of networking is so important. And I really think like you can even leverage that further to kind of like build on some of the messaging or the things that you're trying to get out into the market. So like, for example, um, like we created like a kind of like almanac showing, we're going to do this towards the end of this year, but with all these conversations of leader insights that I'm having with, I'm going to gather all these insights and put them in like a sales almanac. And then basically be like, hey, I will do some outreaches to some of like these relationships that I've built, and maybe even second, third degree relationships, and be like, hey, here are all the sales leaders I've talked to, and here are some of the insights. Do these resonate with you or not? Let's have a conversation. It's
Yep.
very personable type of stuff. So I totally agree with you on all of that input.
And
Um,
you'll be providing them value. You're not
Yeah.
just saying, hey, give me your time. You're saying, here's something that you'll find valuable. Can I speak with you about it? And yeah, right, that's a value exchange. That's very important. If somebody's going to give you their time, hopefully you've given them something or will be giving them
Exactly.
something good.
Yeah, yeah, no, and the value part's really important, I think. And you're kind of like, and I want to get your thoughts on that, is with some of the successful outreaches that have been done to you, what's the value exchange that you've seen work really well? Maybe two or three examples that you can give me, for the audience to learn from.
Yeah, there's a great saying that everyone runs from a bear, but not everyone chases a gold medal. Like I played sports growing up, but at some point that dream died, unfortunately, and I stopped chasing the gold medal because I realized I was never going to get there. But anytime I walk into a room, if a bear walks in right after me, I'm going to get out of that room pretty quickly for the rest of my life. Right? And that's important to think about in sales because people pay to solve problems every time. Sometimes they pay to chase an opportunity. But if you're in a budget meeting and there's a glaring issue and there's an opportunity and only one of those is going to get funded, it's pretty easy to tell which one's going to get the dollars, right? So the best outreach that I've received hits on my pain.
Hmm.
It doesn't tell me I'm going to help you make another $1 million. It doesn't help me if you do these three extra things, then you have the chance to do this. Those are opportunities. Those are gold medals that I could go chase. But I think about gold medals in my sleep, literally. Wake up, like, oh, there's another idea. There's another idea. We can't chase every gold medal as a business. You can't chase every gold medal as a person, but you run from every bear. The best outreach that I receive gets my bear right.
Hmm.
Hey, are you wanting to record more calls, do more call coaching with your team, but you don't have enough time? That's a problem. That is something that resonates with me. I believe a lot in recorded call training and call coaching, but I have time and bandwidth issues doing that with everybody on the team. So if somebody hits on that problem, I'm now paying attention to the rest of their email and how they're suggesting I might solve it. Or, like I had mentioned up front, our company collects a lot of very rich, connected, omni-channel data on consumers. I'm not a data analyst, I'm in sales. Working with that data is prohibitively difficult for me.
Hmm.
The people we have on staff, they're smarter than me. They know how to work with it. They have computer programs that make it easy, but they have a lot of things to do. So I can't just go riff with them for a couple hours on what's in our data. Well, I just got some outreach where somebody said, do you have a lot of disaggregated data and need more analyst time evaluating it? Yes, I do. That resonated with me. And then I read the rest of the email and I made a response and got them in touch with our chief technology officer, and it turned into a good opportunity for us at the business. All right, if you can find the bear that your client is running from and tell them that you understand their bear and give them a pair of Nikes to run faster, then they're going to be listening because you're proving not just value, but value that somebody pays for. And the last analogy I'll give there, my wife and I moved into an old home built in 1960. We've got two young kids. We want to redo the bathroom and the kitchen at the time. We did the bathroom first because the tub was falling apart and it was dangerous to give our kids a bath in the tub. The kitchen doesn't look like we want it to, but it works. There aren't any problems. We didn't chase that gold medal. We paid for the bear so that our kids could not get cut in an old bathtub, right? And that's how buyers think about buying decisions. And if you as a seller can find value and talk to them about the bear, everybody runs from the bear and they're going to want to see how you can help them run faster.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I love these analogies. They make it so simple, for even me to understand. So I think the bear really comes back to that signal-based messaging. So how do you find, like, as a seller, how do you find those bears? I know there's tools like Clay and things like that, but like, is there something simple that you can just, or is it just a pray and spray type of thing, like where it's like, hey, hopefully 1% of the prospect list that we hit are going to resonate with the challenge that we're solving for them, or they have that challenge. Yeah, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, good businesses are founded usually understanding that. Right, they're there to solve a problem. They see a market opportunity. So hopefully you could go to the founder of the business if it's an early stage company and be able to ask them and help them have them help you articulate what that problem or challenge is that people are running from. And then as a business evolves, so does the value proposition, so do the offerings, right? And then for us, it's about lookalikes. Once you find one or two companies
Mm.
that start applying your data or your methodologies in a certain way, how can you make that repeatable? Because that's how you make a scalable business, right? And so, really listening to customers and having that empathy to care about their perspective and what they're saying, and then being able to understand the challenges that you're solving and be able to make that templated and repeatable over time is how a business that starts with one core value proposition and problem you solve can expand in different ways over time, as long as you're just continuing to use that voice of the customer and voice of the market and what they're telling you, looking for your biggest wins and success stories, and then mapping it back to, well, what was the problem that we solved for that client and why was it important the way that we solved it in a differentiated way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. A lot of golden nuggets here, Alex. I really appreciate everything that you've kind of like been, transparently sharing with us and the audience here. I guess my last question, I'm going to leave you with this. For the next episode, based off of your network, who do you know that would be a great revenue leader to bring on here?
Let's see. I would call Max Courtney, who is the chief commercial officer at Morning Consult. He's been a good guide or mentor to me over time. And the other person, who, since we're running out of time, I'll keep it short. But for all you sellers out there, right, I'm a chief revenue officer, big fancy title. Look like I have a bunch of success in my career. I definitely almost got fired very early on in my sales career for poor performance. And Mike Dennis at Rethink Media didn't just put me on a PIP. He helped me through the PIP and really taught me a lot of the fundamentals of sales that I use today. Just a real big inflection point. So Mike Dennis at Freethink Media, thank you. And he would definitely be a great person to put on because he helped springboard my career and take me from somebody flailing who had been a good cold caller and struggled mightily in an account executive seat to somebody who figured it out, did very well at that company, and now has been able to do well at M4. The last thing that I'll also leave you with, because we're talking about following up and how you engage clients after an initial meeting or after an expand conversation. Never send that email like, hey, how's this coming? Hey, do you have an update? Clients have an update, they're going to give you the update. When you want an update, send something valuable. Don't ask for an update. If you do that a couple times, they're going to give you an update anyways. I am on the receiving end where I was supposed to have a budget meeting and it got pushed to Tuesday and somebody sends me that, hey, how'd it go email? And those are the ones I ghost. It doesn't do anything for me to tell you that.
Yeah.
So don't make me tell you that. Instead, send me something valuable. Send me something that's going to help you position yourself in that sales process. That's what I'll pay more attention to. There's really never been somebody who wanted to buy something from someone urgently and forgot to tell them. If they have an update, they're going to give it to you. And if they have a bad update, you don't really want it anyways, so don't ask.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I'll be sure to reach out to those folks and mention your name. But yeah, thank you again for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Waleed. Have a good day.
Yeah.